August 4th, 1904, Volume 6. The state of the blessed in heaven will be according to the ways in which they comported themselves with God on earth. From the very way God is for the soul, it can be seen how the soul is for God. This morning, when blessed Jesus came, he transported me outside of myself, and taking me by the hand, he led me as far as underneath the vault of the heavens, from where one could see the blessed and hear their chanting. Oh, how the blessed were swimming in God! One could see their lives in God, and the life of God in them. This alone seems to me to be the whole essence of their happiness. It also seems to me that each blessed is a new heaven in that blessed dwelling, but all distinct among themselves. There is no one similar to anyone else, and this happens according to the ways in which they comported themselves with God on earth. One tried to love him more. He will love him more in heaven, and will receive from God ever new and increasing love, in such a way that this heaven will have a divine shade and feature, all special. Another tried to glorify him more, and blessed God will give him ever increasing glory in such a way that this new heaven will be more glorious and glorified by the very divine glory. And so with all the other distinct ways that each one had with God on earth, such that if I wanted to say everything, I would be too long. So it can be said that what we do for God on earth, we shall continue in heaven, but with greater perfection. Therefore the good we do is not temporary, but will last for eternity, and will shine before God and around us continuously. Oh, how happy we will be in seeing that all our good and the glory we give to God, as well as our own, comes from that little bit of good that we started imperfectly on earth. If all could see this, oh, how they would hasten more to love, to praise, to thank, and other things the Lord, so as to be able to do it with greater intensity in heaven. But who can say everything? Rather, it seems to me that I am speaking much nonsense about that blessed dwelling place. My mind has it in one way, but my mouth cannot find the words to manifest it. Therefore I move on. Then afterwards he transported me to earth. Oh, how horrifying are the troubles of the earth in these sad times! Yet it seems that this is still nothing compared to what will come, both in the religious state, so much so that it seems that the Church, this good and holy mother, will be torn to shreds by her very children, and in the secular state. Then after this he took me back into myself and told me, "Tell me a little bit, my daughter. How am I for you?" And I, "Everything. You are everything for me. Nothing enters into me. Everything flows outside but you alone." And he, "And I am all for you. Nothing of you goes out of me, but I delight all of myself in you. So from the very way I am for you, you can see how you are for me." Having said this, he disappeared. August 4th, 1925, Volume 17. One who does the divine will is in continuous communication with all created things, and is sustained by all of creation. After going through various days of total privation of my most sweet Jesus, I kept repeating my sorrowful refrain, "Everything is over for me. I will never see him again. I will never again hear his voice, which so much delighted me. I've been abandoned by the one who formed all my contentment and was everything to me. What a long martyrdom! What a life, without Jesus! But while my heart was drowned in pains, my sweet Jesus came out from within my interior, and taking me in his arms, he placed my arms around his neck, and I abandoned my head upon his breast, in an act which expressed that I could not take it any more. And Jesus, squeezing me tightly to himself, leaned his knees on my breast, pressing very intensely, and said to me, "My daughter, you must die continuously." And while he was saying this, he made me share in various pains. Then, assuming a more affable look, added, "My daughter, what do you fear if the power of my will is in you? It is so true that my will is in you that in one instant it transformed you into my pains, and you offered yourself to receive them with love. While you were suffering, you stretched out your arms to embrace my will, and as you embraced it, everything that lives in my will, the angels, the saints, my celestial mamma, and the very divinity, felt the grip of your embrace, and they all ran toward you to embrace you. And in chorus they said, 'How pleasing and dear is the embrace of our little exiled who lives on earth in order to do the will of God alone, just as we do it in heaven. She is our joy. She is the new and only feast which comes to us from the earth.' Oh, if you knew what it means for a soul to live in my will. There is no division between her and heaven. Wherever my will is, she is. Her acts, her pains, her words are in act and operative in every place in which my will is. And since my will is everywhere, the soul places herself in the order of creation, and through the electricity of the Supreme Will, she is in communication with all created things. Just as the created things are in order and harmony among themselves, each one is the support of the other, and not one of them can move. And if even one thing created by me moved, may this never be, the creation would become all upset. There is a secret accord among them, a mysterious force, such that while all the spheres live in the space, suspended in the air, without any support, by the power of communication which they have among themselves, each thing sustains the other. In the same way, one who does my will is in communication with all, and is sustained by all the works of her Creator. Therefore everyone recognizes her, loves her, and offers her the electricity, the secret, in order to live together with them, suspended between heaven and earth, all sustained only by the power of the divine and supreme will. August 4th, 1926, Volume 19. One who is in the divine will is safe, wherever she might be, because in it there are 4 floors. My days, my hours, are always in the nightmare of the so very hard privations of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how painful it is to pass from light to darkness. And while one thinks she is going to enjoy the light, he escapes like a flash, and one remains in the dark more than before. Now, while I was under the press of the privation of the light of my sweet Jesus, and feeling that I could take no more, my dear life, my highest good, moved in my interior, and as I felt him, I said to him, "Jesus, how can you leave me? Without you, I don't know where I am. And he, all goodness, told me, "My daughter, what? You do not know where you are? Are you not in my will? The house of my will is large, and if you are not on one floor, you must be on another. In fact, my will contains 4 floors. The first one is the low level of the earth. That is the sea, the earth, the plants, the flowers, the mountains, and everything else that exists in the lower part of the universe. My will dominates and rules everywhere. Its place is always of queen, and it holds everything in the palm of its hand. The second floor is the sun, the stars, the spheres. The third is the azure sky. The fourth is the fatherland, mine and of the saints. In all of these floors, my will is queen. It occupies the first place of honor. Therefore, whichever of these floors you might be on, be certain that you are always in my will. If you go around in the lower part of the universe, you will find it awaiting you in the sea, that you may unite with it to do what it does. As it carries out its love, its glory, its power, it awaits you on the mountains, down below in the valleys, in the flowery fields. It awaits you in all things, that you may keep it company, so that you may omit nothing. Even more, you will be the repeater of its acts. And once you have gone through the first floor, move on to the second, and you will find it awaiting you with majesty in the sun, so that its light and its heat may transform you and make you lose your being, and you may know how to love and glorify as a divine will knows how to love and glorify. Therefore, go around within our house, in the works of your Creator, because He awaits you everywhere, that you may learn His ways and repeat what my will does in all created things. In this way you will be sure of being always in the supreme volition. Not only this, but you will be always with me. And even though you do not always see me, you must know that I am inseparable from my will and from my works. And therefore, since you are in it, I will be with you, and you will be with me. Having said this, he disappeared like a flash, and I remained in the dark more than before, continuing my acts in the supreme volition. But while I was doing this, I prayed him to come back to his little daughter, saying to him, "My Jesus, I pray you by virtue of your own will, and since your will is spread throughout the whole creation, filling it completely, it is your very will that prays you in the sun to come back to your little newborn. It prays you in each star. It prays you in the azure sky to hasten to come to the one who cannot live without you. It supplicates you in the sea, in its roaring waves, in its sweet murmuring, to come quickly to your little exiled one. Don't you hear, my love, my voice in your will resounding in all created things, and all creation praying, supplicating, sighing, crying for you to return to the little one of your will? How can so many voices not move you to pity? How can so many sighs not push you and not make you fly? Don't you know, O Jesus, that it is your will that prays you, and if you do not listen to it, it is your will that pays the price? And I believe you cannot do without listening to it." But while I was saying this and yet more, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior, transforming me completely in him and sharing his bitternesses with me, which were already too many. Oh God, how many sad things he showed, and his heart was pierced. Then afterwards, as though wanting to cheer himself, making himself seen with his usual pen of light in his hand, he told me, "My daughter, let us put everything aside. Let us speak of the kingdom of the supreme will, which interests me so much. Don't you see how I'm always in the act of writing its qualities, its celestial laws, its power, its divine prodigies, its enchanting beauty, its infinite joys, the order and the perfect harmony that reigns in this kingdom of the divine Fiat, in the depth of your soul? First, I make the preparations. I form in you all the properties of it, and then I speak to you, so that by feeling its properties within yourself, you may be the spokesperson of my will, the crier of it, its telegraph, and the little trumpet, which with a shrill sound may call the attention of those passing by to listen to you. The teachings I give you about the kingdom of my will be like many electric wires, which are such that, when the appropriate communications are established and the necessary preparations are made, a single wire is enough to give light to entire cities and provinces. The power of the electricity, with rapidity greater than that of the wind, gives light to public and private places. The teachings about my will be the wires. The power of the electricity will be the fiat itself, which, with enchanting rapidity, will form the light that will cast away the night of the human will, the darkness of passions. Oh, how beautiful the light of my will be! In seeing it, creatures will dispose the devices in their souls in order to connect the wires of the teachings, so as to enjoy and receive the power of the light that the electricity of my supreme will contains. Do you want to see what will happen? Look, I take one wire of my teachings linked to your soul, and you emit your voice within the wire. Say, I love you, I adore you, I bless you. Whatever you want to say, and be attentive on looking. I said, I love you, and that I love you changed into characters of light, and the electric power of the supreme volition multiplied it in such a way that that I love you of light would go through the whole vault of the heavens, fix itself in the sun and in each star, penetrate into heaven, fix itself in each blessed, form its crown of light at the foot of the divine throne, and enter even into the bosom of the Supreme Majesty. In sum, wherever the divine will was, there it would form its electric light. And Jesus continued, My daughter, have you seen what power the electricity of the Supreme Fiat has, and how it reaches everywhere? The electricity of the earth diffuses down below at the most. It does not have the power to reach even the stars. But the power of my electricity diffuses down below, up high, in the hearts, everywhere. And when the wires are disposed, with enchanting rapidity it will make its way into the midst of creatures. August 4th, 1927, Volume 22. There is no greater happiness than a king who serves his queen, and a queen who serves her king. When the divine will reigns, it is like the beating of the heart. Example of father and son. I was feeling highly afflicted because of the usual privations of my beloved Jesus. But as usual as this pain is, it becomes more intense and ever more harsh, to the point of rendering me petrified. Now, while I was as though immersed in the sea of this pain, I was given a refreshment, and in that ice-cold water I looked at the will of He who kept me tortured, and yet loved me, as He had prepared that refreshment. And as I was bringing it to my lips, Jesus moved in my interior in the act of stretching out His hand in order to sustain the glass, to help me Himself to drink, saying, "I am serving my Queen. She serves me, who am her King, and I serve her, who is my Queen." In fact, one who does my will and lives in it is always ready to do what I want. Therefore she serves her King faithfully and in an admirable way. And since my will is in her, I serve my own will that rendered her Queen. On hearing this, I burst into tears of unspeakable tenderness, and I thought to myself, "Queen, Queen!" And He leaves me so alone and abandoned to the point of letting me reach the extremes? And then He comes up with something new to leave me for even longer? Ah, Jesus, Jesus, do you want to make fun of me? But while I was pouring out my sorrow, He moved again in my interior and added, "My daughter, I am not making fun of you. On the contrary, I tell you that there is no greater happiness than when the King serves the Queen, and the Queen the King. And if the Queen were to be infirm, if she saw herself being served by the King, sustained in His arms, being fed the food by His hands, for there is nothing that the King does not do for her, allowing no servant to come close and serve his Queen, the infirmity would change into happiness for the infirm Queen, and in seeing herself being touched, served, sustained, watched over by the King, she feels as though His love were giving life back to her. If this happens in the natural order, that a king is happier to be served by the Queen, a father by his daughter, while the daughter was served by her father or by her mamma. And this because the king, the father, the daughter have love as their first act in the service they offer, and would want to give their lives with their services. And this is why they are made happy in their pains, which does not happen with servants. And this is why the service of servants is always harsh, much more so in the supernatural order. One who lives in my will is my Queen, and her first act is love. And in all the acts she does, she gives me her life. Oh, how happy I feel in her acts, because those are the acts of my very will that serve me. And in seeing you infirm because of me, I feel happy to serve you in the very things created by me, wanting to give you my very life in each one of them. And in giving it to you, I feel my happiness being doubled, because I feel my life in she who possesses my will that made her a queen to me. Not so when the things created by me serve one who does not do my will. These are servants, because they do not possess a royal will. And oh, how hard it is for me to serve servants. If a king serves his queen, he does not degrade himself. On the contrary, he acquires glory and heroism. But having to serve servants, what sorrow and humiliation! After this, I was following the acts in the divine volition, and I thought to myself, what an impression have the privations of my sweet Jesus caused on my poor soul! I no longer feel those fervors so ardent of before, but everything is coldness. O God, what a double-edged knife is your probation! With one edge it cuts, with the other it kills, and with its cuts it removes and destroys everything, and leaves such nakedness, even of the holiest things, that one can just barely live, and only to fulfill the supreme volition. But while I was thinking of this, my beloved Jesus moved in my interior, telling me, "My daughter, yet everything you used to feel before in your interior entered into the order of ordinary grace. Fervors, sensibilities, are ordinary grace that I give to all according to their dispositions, and that are subject to interruptions, to now rising and now dying, and therefore they constitute neither life nor solidity of sanctity. On the other hand, in my will I have invested you with extraordinary grace, which is firmness in good and incessant act, virtues that are exclusively divine. Do you think that your continuous round in the works of your Creator is something trivial or ordinary? The firmness of your will and mine, only to follow the acts of my eternal will? In the face of my will, fervors, sensibilities, have nothing to do with it. They are like little lights before the great sun, that have no reason to exist, and if they do exist, it is for doing nothing. My will absorbs everything and makes the soul become all of God, who wants to make of her another son. One who is son wants everyone to become son. It would not be something worthy of it to form little lights. It would go out of its nature. And you are there crying over the little lights, and do not think that a son invests you, giving you firmness and unshakability. More so, since when my will reigns in the soul, it is like the beating of the heart, that has the primary act of life in all the members. It is like life, motion, strength, heat. Everything comes from the heartbeat. If the heartbeat ceases, life, motion, and everything else cease. Now, as my will beats in the soul, it beats and gives divine life. It beats and gives its incessant motion, its strength that is never exhausted. It beats and gives its inextinguishable light. How beautiful it is to see the continuous beating of my will in the creature. It is the greatest miracle that exists between heaven and earth. It is the perfect order between Creator and creature. With the soul in whom the heartbeat of my will reigns, I act like a father who keeps his son always with himself. He communicates his ways to him. He feeds him his words. He would want to palpitate in his son in order to give him his intelligence, his life. And when he is sure that his son is another him, and can do what he knows how to do, he says to him, "My son, go out into the field of life and do what your father has done until now. Work, take care of our businesses. Take upon yourself the whole commitment of the family. You will be the repetition of my life, and I will rest. I will accompany you with my heartbeat, that you may feel within yourself the life of your Father, and may carry it out faithfully, as I wait for you in my rest, to enjoy together the fruits of your toils. More than as Father do I act with the soul in whom my will reigns. Rather, a father cannot give his heartbeat to his son, while I give it to her. I keep her always together with me. I teach her my divine ways. I communicate to her my secrets, my strength. And when I am sure, I fling her into the field of the life of my will, that she may take on the whole commitment of the human family, and I say to her, "My daughter, let me rest. I entrust everything to you." But in my rest I will wait for you often, to enjoy the fruit of the work you do in the kingdom of my will. Don't you want, then, that your Father, your Jesus, may rest while you work in my place, but always with my heartbeat? And I, my Jesus, but you almost no longer tell me anything. And not only does it seem to me that I have to work alone without you, but I miss your word that lays for me the way that I must cover in the kingdom of your will. And Jesus added, "My daughter, my word is life, and when I speak I must see whether this life can have life in the creatures. If it is not so, I do not expose a divine life of mine if there is no one who receives. And it is enough for me to see even one single creature disposed to release this divine life from myself within my word. This is why many times I do not speak, because I do not see anyone disposed to live the life of my word. More so since with you I have no need of words to make myself understood. It is enough to look at each other in order to understand each other. Isn't it true? You understand me, and I understand you." End of August 4th. Fiat.